And James, no special guest today. But,
Andy's in the celebrity chair.
But very special company. We got Andy Howell and Simon Thomas to join us. They'll be answering your questions, so make sure you get them in the comments below. But let's kick off. It's a weekend of rugby, but not Six Nations rugby. We got club rugby back on the agenda. And I guess in the wider context of Six Nations, that means that we're seeing a lot of players that we haven't seen for a while.
Yeah, and we're also seeing a lot of Wales squad members. I think we've tallied it up at 11 players involved. I think probably 3 or 4 of them in with a shout of being involved against France, and then others, Owen Watkin a particularly good example of people who are looking to put their hand up for selection, and obviously a lot of regional players who've been sort of waiting for a game for 2 or 3 weeks. But of course it is all the proviso that we had a Storm Cara last week, we've got Storm Dennis this week, Storm Andy now, so we have to wait and see whether all the games survive.
Well, the Dragons game's already off against
that's one gone
against Benetton.
Why is that, Andrew?
Well, because of the storms and ground safety. So it's been said. Plus, they called off Newport's game on Sunday in the Welsh Premiership. So but Aaron Shingler, it's a big weekend for him as well, because you look at the composition of the Wales back row, some question marks after perhaps they were beaten a bit in Dublin, and the athleticism of the French. Do we need Shingler extra line-out option against France the following week? He played in Wayne Piva's debut match as Wales coach against the Barbarians, was one of his favourites at the Scarlets. Big game for him against Edinburgh in what is a massive match, top of the table clash in Conference B, the Pro 14. Edinburgh got 10 players released for it, so they got a really strong side. Shingler has a big game in this match. He could be in that Wales match day 23.
I think there's another Scarlets player. It's a big match for us. Rob Evans, obviously, was in the squad in the first week against Italy, dropped out in place of Rhys Carey on the bench last weekend. So, having missed out on the World Cup, he'll be looking to sort of avenge that second heartbreak.
It's a funny year, Rob, isn't it? It must be a bit frustrating for him, because he was pretty much ever present, involved, in this Six Nations Grand Slam last year, along with Nicky Smith, kind of sharing that role. Slipped down the pecking order, missed out on the World Cup, came back for the Barbarians game, was on the bench against Italy, then out for the game against Ireland in Dublin, and I was on the bench for the Scarlets. I mean, I don't know whether the union have had any involvement in that, the Wales management, in terms of how much he's going to play, because Phil Price is starting, isn't he? But yeah, Rob will be sort of be straining at the leash, and he want to make an impact, because the propping situation is still quite fluid with Wales, isn't it?
Yeah, and another guy who wanted to put his hand up, even though he's not in the Wales squad, but he's almost the forgotten man of the Welsh front row, Samson Lee.
Who did train with Wales last week, didn't he?
And Wales, tight head prop has been an issue, which we've talked about on quite a few occasions. And on that front, Will Griff John, he's in the sales squad. We've got Saracens
going head to head with Rhys Carey.
It'd be interesting, yeah. Will Griff John, I think he needs to start, doesn't he? A game, and he needs to put in a big performance, and to put himself in with a shout of facing the French, whose own scrum has been work in progress, but is showing signs of improving.
Yeah, and I don't really see that the front row changing against France. I think when you consider, there was quite a lot of doom mongering about the scrum going into the Aviva Stadium game last week, and there were a couple of penalties conceded, one in particular, which we maybe talk about. But I think overall the scrum probably did better than people were expecting. They're the two props in Wyn Jones and Dylan Lewis are still very young in international terms and are developing. And I think they will stick with them. Ken Owens in the middle. I mean, if there are to be changes, Andy's touched on the back row. It's a valid point. I mean, I still maintain, I've said this for a while, the man Wales are really missing is Josh Navidi. I think you're seeing that in terms of the speed of ball, and he's the best Welsh player in terms of clearing out at the breakdown. Gives you another option of targeting the ball and challenging for it under the new Warburton system. He's a miss. We don't think he's going to be available for the next game. So I guess the question is, does Shingler throw himself in? The other one is Ross Moriarty, obviously retained in camp along with Aaron Wainwright.
What's interesting on that front is Faletau is only on a bench for Bath at Worcester. So, what does that say? What Bath think of Faletau's form and fitness? He's had such little rugby, although he improved in the second half in Ireland. Still not sure myself whether he's fit enough for internationals.
He'll benefit from half an hour again against some rugby this weekend. I mean, obviously for the listeners and the readers and the viewers to understand, Wales obviously have no control over the English-based players. They have to release all of those back to the sides. I mean, Dan Biggar's not involved because obviously he's had the bang on the head. He's recovering from that. But all those who are fit and available have to go back to be able to play for their teams. When it comes to the Wales players, it's up to the Wales management. and it's essentially they decide which players they want to go back. 7 were released originally.
Yeah.
And 10 Bashans come back. How many are
Were you surprised that there was as many as 7? Because we were expecting it to be few, weren't we?
I was thinking 4 or 5.
Yeah.
I mean, Adam Beer's an interesting one. Now, what do you read into that? Because Adam was on the bench in Dublin with Corey Hill unavailable, came off the bench. Now, we don't really know for definite on Corey Hill, but it seemed like he was going to be struggling to be available for the France game. So that's a little bit of a surprise, unless they feel that Adam needs some game time.
Yeah, possibly. I think the more he plays, the better he is when he's in a rhythm, and all he could do with a bit of a confidence boost. Maybe this says that Hill's going to be available against.
Yeah, that's the way. How do you read it? Which way do you read it, isn't it?
Well, you know, what I applaud Pivot for releasing all his players myself. I think it's good, and I think that's what they should do.
Of course, the other man in an Ospreys shirt this weekend is Owen Watkin, making his comeback from injury. We got a question here from Andrew Fisher. What are the chances of Owen Watkin coming back into the Wales starting side?
Well, I suppose if you look at the start of the championship, if he'd been fit, it's very likely he would have started against Italy. So he was the man in possession. He's a man who played in sort of the majority of Wales' games last year. He was an important squad member, coming off the bench mainly, but having some starts in the World Cup with the injury issues in the centre that Wales had. So he was very much there, and he's had, unfortunately, a knee ligament or knee cartilage problem. That's over that now, and a big game for him this weekend, and ask some questions, because he's a solid player. What do you think of Owen, Andy?
Well, he's work in progress. I think he's a very good defender. I don't think he's sensational at the moment with the ball in his hands, but he's very reliable. Of course, this is his first game since December, so he has been out for a long time. So, and, he had knee cartilage surgery, so... Is he going to be match fit enough for Wales? You need a bit of speed off the mark in the centre, but I do think he is in with a chance of playing against France. He's a reliable player.
Yeah.
He's had a lot of caps, but he hasn't really had enough starts for Wales.
No.
So it's hard to judge him really.
I think when you look at the centre position, any question marks at all over Hadley Parks are answered out in Dublin. He was outstanding. One of his best games, I thought, for Wales, the red jersey. He's absolutely nailed down at 12. So it's a question of what they do at 13. Nick Tompkins had a fantastic Wales debut against Italy, and then it was a bit of a back down to earth with a bump. It was heavily targeted from the outset by Ireland. Robbie Henshaw went after him straight away, looking to target him physically. It bumped him off, I think, the one occasion, and then obviously missed that tackle. But it's a learning process for him. Although he's played for the European champions, international rugby is a different thing. I mean, where do you think he stands under the pecking order, Tompkins?
Well, he plays for the top team in Saracens, and he played really well against Italy. That was a learning experience for him last weekend.
Did you stick with him?
I would stick with him for this game. Yeah, why not? Yeah, I think the other issue Wales have got to address, and even if he's past fit to play or not, is they've got to address the number 10 situation. Because if you're going to play as an argument, if you're going to play the wing pivot style, you've got to have a number 10 who can beat the opposition himself to fix the defence. Even though Big has improved his running game and has played well, he's not never going to make many breaks himself.
I don't think you need a Barry John, someone who can step. I think you look at someone like Rhys Patchell. Rhys Patchell doesn't really step, but he takes the ball to the line hard and he's a running threat.
Yeah, he's really quick as well, man.
He is quick, but I think we've seen with Bigger at Northampton this year, if you give him options, which Wales are doing, they're playing off pods of 4 in midfield, and they're giving him plenty of options inside and outside. When he has those options, he can take the ball to the line hard, and he can act as a running threat. And I think we've seen that early in the Six Nations.
Yeah, Wales scored last season, because they had Anscombe at 10, and he's able to beat people.
What I would say on it is 2 things with Bigger. There's the fitness issue, because obviously he failed a HIA in Dublin, and that's the 3rd concussion he's had in 5 or 6 months.
That's worrying, isn't it?
But the positive news we've had from the Wales camp is he's recovering well. That's what Neil Jenkins told us in the week. So it sounds like he's going to be available. And the fact that they haven't called in another fly half following the loss of Owen Williams for the championship suggests to me they're confident, because otherwise, if they weren't, you'd be left with Jared Evans.
Yeah.
So that suggests that Bigger's going to be okay. In terms of fitting into the pivot game plan, well, I would just look at the Thomas Williams try last week. There was a brilliant sort of camera angle which I saw in one social media feed, which was showing from behind the Wales post, looking down, which is a great angle to see, tracking the Wales. And the movement of Bigger off the ball, I think he was involved in the move 4 times. It came off a line or a tip-rick in the midfield. It went left and left, right, and Bigger was dominating and controlling it. Obviously made the key incision along with Alan Wynne-Jones. Yeah. So I think he fits into it. What Pivot is looking for is variety, movement off the ball, quick ball off face play. You saw there what can be done, and Bigger to me looked like a 10 who can run that ship really well. Yeah. So I don't personally think there's an issue with him, but.
No, not decrying.
No, just in terms of fitting into Pivac's style.
I just think working their way forward, and that's particular.
But I would say, I thought Jared Evans, when he came on, played really well and offered something different. And in the way, the same way as you had bigger, more of a controlling player, Anscombe more perhaps of an attacking, creative player last season, I think you've got another nice balance in that respect now.
And this was the real sort of litmus test for Jared Evans, wasn't it? Because he's had a few caps here and there, but they've been sort of, Ireland at the Millennium Stadium was a sort of a warm-up match. This was Dublin, a Six Nations match. This is Test rugby, and I thought he came through that really well.
Yeah, I think he benefited from the Barbarians game because I think he was confident in that and went well for him. And yeah, I still maintain that with ball in hand, I think he's one of the most threatening tens in European rugby. And in a way, kind of chasing the game the way he was playing, I thought he fitted in nicely, and it's a nice balance, I think. But as I say, you do hope that Dan's going to be okay for the France game.
I think
what Wales need, though, for both either of those to prosper, is quick ball, which is about the only time they did in that match was without try.
Which to me comes back to the Navidi thing.
And we go back to the Navidi thing, but would Navidi had much of an impact on Ireland because they were getting so far over the gain and their support play was so good and their ball presentation, as Warburton has told the back row, is you only go in when it's on.
I was talking more about when Wales are in possession and the clear out and the speed of the ball there. I think that is particularly. I remember we talked before. You saw it in the World Cup semi-final against South Africa. Peter Steph Dutrois slowed our ball down so efficiently in the absence of Navidi. I just think he's the best player at that. Now, if you look at the three options at six, Wainwright, Moriarty and Shingle, they were all kind of more upright players. You wouldn't really call them natural jackals over the ball. And we've talked so much about how excellent we are on that area. But if you look at the players who are good in that, particularly good, James Davis, Ellis Jenkins, Navidi, and Tipuric, obviously, three of those are unavailable. So in terms of the jackling, we do, I think, rely quite a lot on other players contributing. Yeah. Dylan Lewis, Wyn Jones in particular. So again, you come back to the balance of the. What would you do in the back row next week then?
I'd play Moriarty at 8, Tipuric at 7, and I would seriously have a look how Shingle goes this weekend.
That's quite a radical change.
Yeah, but it's still a good back row, and it's a big and athletic back row, which I think you're going to need. Don't forget, France got a lot of strength in their back row, has line-out strength and big men as well. Do we counter them with big men? People
watching this, get your views in on what Andy suggested there.
Definitely get your comments in. We'll take a break from these two now to hear the thoughts of Neil Jenkins. He was asked yesterday about Shaun Edwards and his return to Wales.
Shaun Edwards, someone you know well, of course. What's it going to be like facing a team with a defence coached by Shaun Edwards as opposed to working with it?
Yeah, very tough. I think that's the brutal honesty of it. And he's an outstanding coach, one of the best in the world. We know obviously because we've had him at first stand here for 12 years and did an exceptional job with us. And he's doing obviously he's a very good job with France already. But again, we got to back ourselves. We're at home. We expect to win. Going to be a tough game, going to be a brutal game, but France are a very good side. But as I said, we're at home and we expect to win and we expect to perform as well. So it's going to be very tough, but we got to back ourselves. There's no doubt in it.
There we go. That's the thought of Neil Jenkins. We got a question here from Chris Richards about Shaun Edwards. What, if anything, will Wales try and come up with to counteract a Shaun Edwards coach defence?
Well, all they need to do is look at some tapes from the World Cup and pre-World Cup. Look at England against Wales pre-World Cup match at Twickenham, and you look at Australia. Even though Wales won the game, thankfully, Australia in the World Cup and Fiji, and you can see Wales and the All Blacks third place playoff. Wales are very vulnerable to the cutback. You've got to have a lot of decoy runners. You've got to play off 10. And you've got a lot of runners off the ball, and in the Welsh defence, Edwards is a great coach, but he was exposed in those matches. So it's whether Simon can answer this. Have Wales got the players who can play that sort of game?
Well, I watched. I hadn't seen the France-Italy game because we were travelling back from Dublin. So
it was a good match, actually.
Well, I sat down and watched it a couple of days ago, and the player who caught my eye as. If you're talking about how to unpick an Edwards defence, Minozzi. He was playing on the wing on this occasion. I mean, he wasn't great against Wales. He was beaten for Tompkins' try, didn't really have an impact. They moved him to the wing, and he was causing real problems. And why was he causing real problems? In particular, he's quick and good feet, but it was his offloading. It was the flicks out the side. Now, if you look at the way Wales are looking to play under Wayne Pavac, the offloading chart has gone right up. I think we had 16 offloads or 13 offloads in the one game. There would be seasons, Six Nations campaign and a Gatland. You wouldn't get that in total. No. It was more controlled, perhaps, and more pragmatic. Is that a better word? So that is clearly a big thing for the Stephen Jones-Wayne Pavac game. That player, Minozzi, showed that France were vulnerable to that. So I think that's going to be a big work on for Wales this week. Getting the ball high up, getting the arms free, getting behind people. Because under Edwards' systems, you don't tend to have many missed one-on-one tackles because you're scared to go back in the dressing room if you missed him. But in a one-on-one tackle, you can still have an option for an offload. So I think that's going to be a big factor.
What's important to remember is France are early in this process. So I think we saw that in the first game at Paris where they came out, were aggressive in defence, and then maybe they tired a little bit because they don't have the fitness levels. So if Wales do hit the offload button and accurately, they can move this French team around and cause that.
The other thing was he was well marshalled by Wales, but I thought Pelledri's ball carrying, he had quite an impressive impact against France. So what we basically needed was we need a couple of players carrying hard, and then players who are coming on second into the line to have that ball available for the offload. And I think that's the way to cut France.
On ball carriers, we've got a question here from Jimmy on Twitter saying, do we need more sort of carriers like Moriarty and Reece Carey to maybe start?
That's one of the reasons I picked Moriarty. You need someone carrying harder. Reece Carey, is he ready yet to start against France?
He didn't make much of an impact when he came on against Ireland in terms of his ball carrying, whether perhaps didn't come his way that much. I mean, Carey can take the ball forward at a rate of knots.
We need Jake Ball carrying more. We need Ken Owens carrying more for two. And they'll notice. But of course, that all that starts, doesn't it? With how much pressure you're under forward, and Wales were under pressure as a unit against Ireland. If you're under pressure, you don't get so many opportunities to carry the ball.
If you look at the try that Wales scored, Thomas Williams' try, which I mentioned earlier, the key carry was the initial one from Tipuric, away from a line out, just came at a great pace, great line. So it's not always just about sheer bulk, is it?
That's when he ran a centre line.
Oh yeah. But also as well, if you look at that try, the other key carry was Alan Wynne-Jones when he hit that line and gave the offload, and Dan Biggar gave the offload. I think that is the key to beating France next week.
France's centres as well, they had problems against Italian centres.
Was it Fiku and Vakatawa? Was Vakatawa missed out, didn't he?
Yeah. So they had some problems as well. And I spoke to Shaun Edwards a couple of days ago, and he said that France went backwards a couple of steps in that game. Defensively, and people like Teddy Thomas, will he be picked against Wales because he was lazy in defence?
Is Penno likely to be fit?
He's supposed to be fit, so he could come back in.
I enjoyed your piece with Shaun, and I particularly enjoyed when he was referring to what he will do if France score a try.
Not celebrate, so he said.
The old football thing, isn't it? Do you think he'll be able to keep that?
He says he will, So
how's his French accent coming on?
He says he can prepare the team in French, but he said if you ask the Wales lads, he says, why expand on things if you can say it in 2, 3 and 4 words? So he was in great form.
Choice words.
Good to see he hasn't changed. I think that's it for today's game line, but we'll be back again tomorrow, same time, same place.
Whizzed by, that did.
It did.